So this video is for integrated one. This is on the chapter 1 group quiz that we did in class today. I'm going over all of the questions for anyone who doesn't understand any of them. I'm also going to be posting the key in Canvas for us. Again, this was just for us to get prepared for our test that's going to be on Block Wednesday. So on this first problem, what they're asking us to do is we are going to be taking this -5 and we are going to be putting it into this equation for x. So we're going to go 2 times -5 minus 3. We get -10 minus 3, we get a -13. So our answer is -13. Okay, we put in a -5 and we got out a -13. On the next one, we're going to be putting in 64 into the square root of 64 over 7. Now, the square root is when you're asking yourselves, what am I squaring to get 64? What can I multiply with itself to get 64? And the answer to that is 8. So our answer, our output, when we put in a 64, we're going to get out an 8/7. On C. For this one, I don't know what we're putting in. I know that the output is 36. Okay. So I know that this is going to be a 36. I'm trying to figure out what can I square to get a 36. Now, the answer to this is actually going to be 2 answers. You could have done a positive or you could have done a -6. We actually get 2 answers because 6 squared is 36 and -6 squared is also a 36. So we actually could have gotten both of those to go in here and get out a 36. On D, similar problem here where I know the output is 14. Okay, so I'm going to put that in place of that f of x. So I want to know what x is going to give me 14 when I work out 5x plus 2. So I'm going to set 14 equal 5x plus 2 and I'm going to solve. I'm going to minus 2. I get 12 is equal to 5x. I divide by 5. And so my x is a 12/5. That is what my input was to get out a 14. Now, E and F are similar to the ones I did above, but they're just not in a function machine. So right here, you see this is the function that would have been in the machine. And when they say f of 5 here, that means you're putting 5 in place of the x. So it's 3 times x minus 7, and I'm going to have 3 times 5. So that's going to be 15 minus 7, which is 8. So the answer to this is 8. F of 5 gives us an 8. When I put in a 5, I get out an 8. On F, this one is different. I know the output is 30. So in place of the f of x, I'm going to put 30. 30 is equal to 6x plus 9, and I'm going to solve for x. I'm going to minus 9 from both sides. I get 21 is equal to 6x. I divide by 6. And so I get 21 over 6. That's an acceptable answer. Some of us might reduce top and bottom by 3 and give me a 7/2. And that's going to be the same answer. I would accept either one. Now on 2, we're simplifying these with using the laws of exponents. I'm just going to jot the laws of exponents down here at the bottom. So if I have x to the a times x to the b, I add the exponents together and I get x to the a plus b. If I have x to the a raised to the power of b, power to power, I multiply those and I get x to the a times b. If I have x to the a over x to the b, I can cancel x's from top and bottom, but the rule is x to the a minus b, top minus bottom, exponent. So on a, what I'm going to do when I do this is my 3 and the 4 are normal numbers. They're going to multiply together. My x to the 5th and x to the 2nd are going to multiply together. My y to the 7th and y to the 3rd. So I am going to be, let me just jot it out. 3 is going to multiply with 4. My x to the 5th is going to be multiplying with x to the 2nd. My y to the 7th is going to be multiplying with y to the 3rd. And then when I work that out, I'm going to get 12. And here I'm going to add the exponents because it's just like this down here. So that's going to be x to the 7th. And then here, I'm also going to add the exponents because that's also like down here. So I'm going to get y to the 10th, and that is my answer. On B, my 6 and 3 are normal numbers. That's just 6 divided by 3. My a to the 5th and my a to the 15th are going to be working dealing with each other. My b to the 11th and my b to the 4th. So let me just write a fraction bar. When I'm looking at 6 over 3, 6 over 3 is just 6 divided by 3, which is 2. So I'm going to have a 2. When I'm looking at my a's, I have 5 a's on top, 15 a's on bottom. So I can cancel 5 a's on top with 5 a's on bottom, and I'm going to be left with 10 a's on the bottom. My b's, I have 11 b's on top and 4 b's on bottom. So I can cancel 4 on top and 4 on bottom. And I'm going to be left with 7 on the top. And that's going to be our answer. Now, I'm going to expand this just so you understand what this means. My 3m to the 4th is being raised to the power 3, which means I have a 3m to the 4th times a 3m to the 4th times a 3m to the 4th. So in other words, my 3 is going to be raised to the 3rd power. And my m to the 4th is also being raised to the 3rd power. Now, when I do 3 to the 3rd, that's a 27. 3 times 3 is 9 times another 3 is 27. Now here, when I have power to power, that's going to be like this over here where I multiply them. Because I have 3 sets of 4 m's basically. So I'm going to have m to the 12th when I multiply power to power. On the next one, we do not like negative exponents. So the very, very, very first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to move that. If it's negative in the numerator, I move it to the denominator. And if it's negative in the denominator, I move it to the numerator. So let me just make that look like an x. So I have 4x to the 5th, 8x to the 10th, y to the 2nd, and that y to the negative 8th is going to move down here and be y to the positive 8th. Then I'm going to be looking at 4 over 8, and that's going to be just a 4 over 8, if you think of it as a fraction. So 4/8 is the same as 1/2, okay? So I'm going to have a 2 on bottom. And then if I'm looking at my x's, I have 5 x's on top, 10 x's on bottom. So I can cancel 5 from top with 5 from bottom, and I'm left with 5 on the bottom. And then my y to the second and y to the 8th that are both on bottom, that is going to be like this. And so I'm going to add my exponents, and I am going to get y to the 10th on bottom. And then since I don't have anything on top, remember it was a 1/2, so I need to at least put the 1 on top. And that's my answer. On 3, solving equations. Okay, we're not guessing and checking, we're solving equations. So let me just draw a line. Okay. So the first one, I'm going to add 4 to both sides. That's my first step of my 2-step equation. So I'm going to get 3x is equal to 18. I am then going to divide by 3, and I get x equals 6. On the next one, I'm going to deal with my x's first. So I'm going to minus x, because that's going to give me a positive x back. So I'm going to have a 5x plus 2 is equal to, and be careful, that is a negative 12 that needs to come down. So now I'm going to minus 2 minus 2. So I'm going to have 5x is equal to a negative 12 minus 2 is a negative 14. I'm going to divide by 5, and I end up with x is equal to a negative 14/5. On the next one, what I notice is on this side here, I have some like things I can combine. So 7x and a negative 3x is going to become a 4x plus 2 equals 4x plus 5. Now I notice I have a 4x on both sides. So what's going to happen when I subtract 4x here and I subtract 4x here? I'm going to be left with 5 equal 2, which is not true. So my answer is no solution. Now, on D, it's a literal equation. They are asking us here to solve for x. So I want to solve for x. So the very first thing I need to do is get rid of that 4y. So I'm going to minus 4y, minus 4y. When we do, we get a negative 9x is equal to 20 minus 4y. And then I want to get the x by itself. So what's in front of the x? Well, in front of the x is a negative 9. So I'm going to divide by negative 9. So I'm going to get x is equal to 20 minus 4y all over negative 9. Now, an acceptable answer would be also to, instead of having the negative on the bottom with the 9, make everything on top opposite, a negative 20, a positive 4y, and then it's a positive 9. Those are the same. Most of us will probably give me this one though. Okay, on 4, trying to see if something's a function or not a function. So for a function, remember each x goes to only one y, okay? So what I look at, is there any repeats? So I see 1's repeated, but each time 1 went to 1, so that's okay. I have 4 repeated. 4 went to 2, and then 4 went to negative 2. That is a problem. That cannot happen, okay? Each time I have an x, it needs to go to the same y every time. So this is going to be no. The input 4 goes to 2 different outputs. 2 and -2. So it is not a function. On the next one, I'm going to draw a vertical line through my graph. And if that vertical line touches the graph at more than one spot, okay, which it does, it touches here and here, that means that that particular X has 2 outputs. So this is going to be no. Fails vertical line test. Some X's have more than one output. Okay, the last one here. If you're looking at all of the X's, I have a 3, I have a 6, I have an 8, I have a 7, I have a 9. No repeats. It's okay that all of them go to the same number. No X goes to 2 different numbers. So this is going to be yes, it is a function. Each X goes to only one Y. Now on 5, they want us to explain if 5x squared and the quantity 5x squared and 5x squared are the same. So if I have a 5x squared, that is a 5x times a 5x, which is going to be a 25x squared. And that is not the same as 5x squared. Sometimes people will also put numbers in. So for example, if I let x equal 2, 5 times 2 squared is equal to 10 squared, which is equal to 100, where 5 times 2 squared, I need to do the 2 squared first. Okay, that means I'm going to do the 2 squared first. And so that's going to be 5 times 4, which is 20. Okay, that's another way to kind of show that they're not the same. On the next problem, domain and range. So domain is your X's, and X's is how you're going left to right. And range are your Y's, and that's how you're going up or down. So if I'm looking at this graph here, I'm going to draw a vertical line. And I am going to move that vertical line across my graph. And as I move it, I want to see what's the furthest to the left and the furthest to the right. So the furthest to the left that this graph goes is -3, but it's an open circle. So that means -3 is not included. And the furthest to the right it is a 1. And there's a solid circle, so that is included. So I'm going to write it in 2 ways, and then I'm going to pick the answer. In interval form, I would go open bracket -3 because of the open circle here, comma 1. And because that's a closed circle here, I do a square bracket. Now, what does that mean in terms of an inequality? Start with your smaller number, -3, less than, strictly less than because it's open. That means it doesn't include that. X less than or equal to because it is closed and it does include the 1. And so you'll see that that is answer C. Now, when you're doing this, if you notice that there's X's and Y's, domain is your X's. Don't answer any of the ones that have Y's. Okay, or if it's range that you're looking for, you should only have Y's and no X's. Okay, on 7, we want f of -2, which means if I was to take this where x is -2, this is where x is -2, right where I move that to. And where does it touch the graph? It touches right here at -4. So f of -2 is -4. So that is going to be C. So hopefully this helps you. Make sure you understand how to do all of these problems for our test on Wednesday.